If you've taken any aspect of music production and engineering seriously, you've probably read dozens of articles by our next guest, Paul White. Since 2004, Paul has served as editor-in-chief of Sound on Sound magazine, but we've all been reading his work since 1984 out of Home Recording magazine. Over the decades, Paul's articles and reviews have introduced us to new products, new ideas, and new perspectives in a detailed, accurate, and compelling manner. Not only has he taught us what gear to use, but Paul's wisdom and sprinkles of humor have taught us the why, where, when, and how to use this gear. Paul's talent and passion for music and recording is all-encompassing. His training can be traced back to early childhood and classical, but he soon developed a taste for pop and rock music of the time. Later, he studied electronics at university and design and built gear soon after. He's built studios, he's engineered and produced records, and in this episode, we'll also discover that Paul White is part of the duo, the Cydonia Collective, on a mission to create vast cinematic sonic landscapes while abusing a plugin or two in the process. So let's meet the man behind the glossy pages of Sound on Sound and discover why it's been the music savvy's go-to magazine for so long. Ladies and gentlemen, Gear Club welcomes Paul White.
We want to welcome Paul.
Yeah, Paul. Yep.
Sound on Sound.
Great to have you.
Welcome aboard. How's your AES going?
It's been a good show for us. Not too many revolutionary products, but quite a lot of worthy evolutionary ones, I think.
Right. Like when you mean revolutionary, like when was the last time you came to AES and it was like, whoa?
Well, things like when Melodyne came up with the polyphonic pitch correction, that kind of stuff, or when the first spectral editing programs came out and now you can take out that chair thump in the middle of the orchestral recording. All these things were kind of landmarks. And some of the Synaptic software actually is really clever. I'm a big fan of their stuff. Mm.
Stuart found some guy that's got a back massager, electronic back massager. It's in your aisle, more towards the front.
Yeah, I bought one last year for my wife.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. That's what he wanted to do.
Wait, I did too. How much did you pay for yours?
I think I knocked him down to $60.
They were going to sell us two for what, $250?
$250.
Yeah.
He started with one for $250.
Yeah, I waited right till the end of the show and I said, well, last year somebody sold me one for $60. They said, go on then, $60.
You know, I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, I'll just massage you back for 50.
You got 40? So how many AES is it for you guys?
I don't know, frightening number. I started with Sound on Sound in 91.
Right.
But before that, I was with a magazine called Home Studio Recording, which eventually got sold and is now a recording magazine over here. So I started there in 1984, and I think I've probably been to every AES show since then, and every NAMM show. Yeah, so back then, tape recorders ruled the earth, of course, and things have changed. Yeah. So I've seen the ADAT come and go, and then the old Atari computers, and now we got the Apples.
3324s come and go.
Yeah.
Right?
Indeed, everything comes and goes.
Those were hard to make go because they were very heavy.
Yeah.
But one of the things you guys do that's really great is obviously you have a staff of people who really get into this stuff. And it doesn't seem like it's about an advertisement for a product. It seems like it's a genuine critique.
Well, it has to be, doesn't it? Because a magazine these days is competing with the internet, and all we can sell is depth and honesty.
Right.
Because you don't know you're getting that on the internet. You know, you may or you may not. So we've got a really good staff of core writers and core freelancers, all who specialise in certain things, and they'll dig really, really deeply. I mean, people like Gordon Reed, who does the synthesizer reviews most of the time. I mean, he's bought most of the old things. You know, he's got a house full of them. His only rule is that you mustn't have synths in the lounge, but he's got a Hammond and a Mellotron there because he says they're furniture, they're not synths.
That's when gear used to sound good and look good.
Yeah.
You've got a Mellotron in your lounge.
I do, as a matter of fact.
He does.
So you must have a specialist for every kind of product.
Pretty much, yes. It's like DAW software. We have people who use them very deeply. I mean, the only one I know anything about really is Logic, because that's what I've grown up with since the days of Creator.
Right.
I dabbled in the early days of Pro Tools, but I've kind of let go of it since.
So did you start as an engineer? Musician? Engineer?
No, I actually, when I left school, I went into electronics. There was a research establishment in the town where I now live, which was run by the Ministry of Defence, and it was all radar research. And I did an apprenticeship there, took my qualifications there, and then went into industry for 12 years doing laser anemometry and weird stuff.
Wow.
And then this job came up. I saw it for a music magazine in Cambridge. It was called Home Studio Recording, and they wanted a technical editor who could design little fuzz boxes and things for the readers to build. So I said, well, I'm interested in this, but I don't really want to move to Cambridge because I live in Malvern, which is a really nice town. And they said, well, if you come in 1 day a week, you can do the rest from home.
Oh, that's great. The original working from home.
Yeah, so I started doing that. And after about 6 months, the two brothers who were running the magazine left over a pay dispute because they went to see the guy and they said, hi, Terry, we can't live on what you're paying us at the moment. What can you manage? And he said, well, I could probably manage an extra £100. And he said, I can't manage on an extra £100 a month, Terry. He said, no, a year. And at that point, they just walked out and left an empty filing cabinet in 11 days before the next issue. And it was either me or the guy who cleaned the corridors, and he didn't want to do it. So I managed to write most of that issue myself.
Wow.
I think that was May 2014, May 1984 or 85. Put all that together and got away with it. But the guys who left then went on to set up Sound on Sound. And when they got big enough, they attracted me over because there were rumours that our magazine was going to be sold, which in fact it was subsequently.
Right.
So I went over to Sound on Sound and never looked back, really. It's much better than a real job, as I say.
Yeah. Who bought home recording?
Future Music bought the whole raft of products apart from home recording, which was then bought by Recording, which is based in Colorado, I think.
Oh, really? Okay, gotcha.
Does sales of the magazine subsidize the magazine, or does advertisement?
Both.
Both.
Yes, you couldn't survive on either these days on their own. And we have the electronic subscription, of course, but
Right.
those are growing as paper subscriptions go down because that's the way the world works.
Right.
What's the either philosophy or rules about advertising something that you're reviewing?
We tend to keep advertising very, very separate, because they get company cars and free meals and we don't. So we don't really care whether they make a living or not.
Right.
No, we keep them as separate as possible. We don't review something that's inappropriate
That's
just
what
because someone wants to advertise it. It's got to be of interest.
Right.
And there's no such thing as a good review for money or anything like that.
Right.
Right.
Which is why we love the magazine.
Yeah, I mean, we've upset one or two people occasionally. I mean, there was
You have to, right?
There was a well-known Japanese mixing desk we had a few years ago, and Rob Johns did use the word tragically, which I did take that out and put in the word unfortunately. But apart from that, that's as far as it went.
Yeah, I've always read it, like, I guess just spending time in England and stuff and reading it there and just getting it here. I always felt like it's a great read.
Yeah.
It's just a real, like an adult magazine that deals with recording. And obviously we have our tape op here, which is more like the home enthusiast or the maybe hobbyist through the professional. But Sound on Sound to me is always like, I just always look forward to it. And the interviews are very good and they're very factual and just, you know what I mean? It's kind of like the stuff I really get into when I'm reading.
Yeah, but we also cover, home recording up to the professional. It's just the professionals happen to get it and like it. But it really rode on the back of the home recording revolution, which was started with the Atari ST and all the sequencing software that went with that, and the early 4 and 8 track analog tape recorders. And then we just moved along as things have evolved.
How is it chosen that this, just as an example, I'm not going to mention what it is on the cover?
Well, that's only for the show, and so that is
is
a paid promotional extra cover which you can get for the AES show from people who are exhibiting here. So inside is the actual cover.
Right.
Yeah, but normally we just choose the cover based on what we think is going to attract the most readers to buy the magazine that issue.
And are you guys global?
We're global-ish, yes, I think.
Did you know it was going to catch on in the States as well as, I assume it's caught on well here?
It's caught on very well here. We started off doing it just in the UK, plus subscriptions from anywhere else in the world that wanted it. And then we decided to launch over here, but we did it for the first 2 years with no advertising at all because we'd already paid for the production of the material, so we were just paying for the printing. And we took a little bit of a loss on it just to get it going. And all the competitors were going, but how can you sell it with no advertising? And people would come and say, we want to advertise in your magazine. You can't, we don't do it. And then after 2 years, it got big enough that people did want to advertise. We could ask for a sensible price, and it built up from there, and now it's doing hugely well.
Right.
Oh, the ones that are sold in the United States, are they printed here?
Yes, they are, actually. And the pricing is local, and the details of where you can buy stuff is local, but all the copy is the original British copy with British spelling and proper words in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well done. So you guys are obviously at this point doing a ton of EDM and just like, it's just wide open. Do you guys do any kind of hip hop artists, or is it mostly like EDM and rock and stuff like that?
It's anything from folk to EDM to rock to ambient, whatever comes along. I mean, personally, I'm not too much into dance music myself. I think it's music to dance to rather than to listen to.
I saw you dancing upstairs. You were great.
You did not.
He was not dancing to a Bob Clear Mountain interview, I tell you that much.
I'm not too worried about the kind of music that people make. I'm more about the process. I mean, other people deal with, what's the best kind of kick drum sound for a dance track or whatever, but the process is the process, and it's applicable really regardless of what kind of music you make. I mean, if someone brings something to me to mix, I don't care what it is, I'll give it my best shot, and it's not necessarily the music I would go out and pay to listen to. In fact, in most cases, it's not. Yeah.
Do you find yourself like here, are you talking to guys like Paul Wolf and people like that, design guys, or like when you're hanging around in your booth, like do you pop over and say hello to the Chandler guy or stuff like that? You're probably pretty good buddies with a lot of the people, right?
Yeah, I like talking to designers because I had this electronic background, and so I like to sort of geek out a little bit about what's inside the box where I can. But really, I learned electronics at the wrong time. It was just when the first digital circuits were coming out, and it was all about 7/4 series NAND gates. It's not microprocessor or anything like that. So I got out of electronics at the right time because coding isn't my thing. My brain doesn't work that way.
Do you get a galley before it goes to be printed?
Not anymore, no. We send it off in a electronic format. We check it all out. We can print it out in monochrome and make sure that minimum number of typos. We try and catch all those. Yeah.
Just like a rough version before that.
Like a hard copy.
Yeah.
Yes, gotcha. Because when we started, it was physical galleys. It was wax paper and razor blades and, all that kind of stuff. And doing the photography in-house, but now it all goes off to the printers in electronic form and comes back as if by magic, which is great. Because we used to have our own typesetting machine. It cost a fortune.
Yeah,
it's about the size of a washing machine in there. But you just don't need that anymore.
Are you limited to a certain amount of pages?
We just try to balance the number of pages on what the advertising can financially support. So the more advertising we get, the more pages we put in.
Right.
But we try and keep the ratio about the same. We'd never let it become ad heavy.
Right.
So how do you guys pick your producer of the month or the episode?
Well, we tend to have these freelancers who've got an in with various parts of the industry, and they come to us with the people that they can get, and then we pick from what they've got. I mean, that's why I say it all works so well without too much guidance, because we have so many focused people. It all comes together, and then we have an editorial team, like a newspaper, section editors, who then bring all that in and make it fit within the page allowance that they've got for their section. And then I just dream up the special projects and go out to lunch with people. It's very easy.
So define a special project.
Well, when we first started doing Reader's Remixes, that was my idea, and everyone said it was mad, but we did it anyway. And the Studio SOS thing, where we go out to a reader's studio and try and sort out their acoustics and sew up their furniture and move all the stuff about and try and make it less awful,
Right.
And it's been really popular. We've been doing that for about 15 years.
So what studios have you gone? Like in England, obviously, you've gone into certain studios and kind of...
Yeah, well, this is mostly home studios, but the most interesting one we'd done a couple of interesting ones, but one was for Hans Zimmer, actually. He was doing music for a film in London's West End, and they'd given him a temporary room, which was acoustically dreadful and about half the size of this. And we went in and made some disposable acoustic treatment we could hang up, and we wanted to get his tweeters at the right height, so we turned his monitors upside down, which he said he'd never thought of.
Wow.
and got it all working. So that was a bit of a special one, but mostly it's the guy in the garage studio, and he's got no acoustic treatment, and his speakers are facing the wrong way, and or he's talking
Speaker to the face.
talking into the back of the microphone, that kind of stuff. I mean, one of our favourites is we went to this guy and we were sorting out his acoustic problems. We did that, and then he said, "I'm having trouble with my mixers. Can you take a look?" And I said, "Yeah, just put it up. We'll take a look while you go and make the tea and biscuits, because we insist on tea and biscuits." So he goes off to do that. First thing I do is bypass all his plugins to see what he's actually got. So I did that and put the faders up. He comes running back in. He says, "That sounds so much better. What have you done already?"
Right.
And that is one of the problems with, I think, amateur musicians, is that they'll record anything without taking too much care over it, then try and beat it into submission with plugins, and that's really not the way to do it.
Right.
I told Stewie a while back that I mixed a record in 2016 where the artist I'd known forever, he came to me and he said, I recorded this record and we haven't mixed it. It just doesn't sound right. And he brought me the files and, they hired me to remix the record. And the first day I just started taking every track had 7 plugins and Decapitator and this. And I just started stripping away all the plugins one by one. And as I took them off things, it just started sounding like music again.
Yeah.
And then we put plugins back on, but we made it, we liberally put stuff on. But it's incredible how you really just, the automatic thing would be to lean on it, immediately.
Well, it's that typical mistake. Everyone treats the sound in isolation to make it sound as big and up front as possible. And what you end up with is everything's crowding up the front and there's no front to back perspective.
Yeah.
And, synthesizer manufacturers don't help with their presets. They're all designed to sound big and impressive in the shop, but they fill up your entire track if you're not careful with them.
Do you have any desire to mix records? Or make records? Or you seem like you have...
I make some of my own, and I do work with a couple of artists in England who are fairly well known just to do little bits and pieces, but I haven't really got time to do too much.
Right.
I do a lot with Gordon Giltrap, who's a solo acoustic guitar player. He's very much a virtuoso and, he's pretty big. But, we're good friends. We've been working together for about 30 years on and off, and he'll record stuff at home and bring it to me, and I'll comp it up for him and do a little bit of mastering on it and turn it into an album.
Do you do that at home or at the office?
Oh, at home.
Right. So you said you have Logic.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone who works at SOS is a home studio kind of guy, and mostly guitar players.
Right.
So everyone has a studio of sorts.
Did you grow up listening to English folk music?
Not very much, no.
Rock and roll?
No, I grew up listening to The Who and the Yardbirds and Pink Floyd and proper music.
Right.
Yeah.
Blues, John Mayall,
Yeah, Blues Breakers.
Yeah, that's the good stuff. I mean, it's kind of sad in a way that the bands I like most now, and they're still playing, are the ones who were around when I was at school. Right. You think they've lasted an entire lifetime. How many of the modern bands are going to last a lifetime? I don't know.
Yeah, it's that whole phrase classic rock, right?
Yeah, it really is classic rock.
It's classic rock. It's I don't know about records we listen to today or even in the zeros at all.
Yeah.
Apart from maybe the Radioheads, but even that's not really classic to me.
No,
that's very niche.
It came after Sgt. Pepper. That's new music.
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we go out and see people like Jeff Beck, and he's in his 70s now, and he's still a magician. It's absolutely magic.
You know what? I think he's better than ever.
He's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And yet it's so different from the music that's been promoted by the radio, which is usually the prize in a talent show somewhere. It's just not right.
Yeah, ain't it? So how many people are on your staff?
Let's see, we've got about half a dozen in the editorial department, around 4 in the production department, and then we've got admin staff. So at any one time, it's probably around 20 or 22 staff entirely. So that's a lot for a magazine.
But do you consider the people who are doing technical reviews part of your staff? Or?
Not all of them, no, they're freelancers.
They're freelancers.
I mean, we've probably got 15 or 20 regular freelancers who we call on. And
so is that your job? You get a new product comes out and you go, I know who would understand this.
It depends if it's a product that fits a niche that's different from the ones we already have, because if it's things like microphones or speakers, we already have our specialists for those, and we'll probably pick from 1 of 3 people for each of those type of reviews.
So what are the main categories? Speakers, microphones, consoles?
Yeah, we've got one editor who does live sound, microphones and monitors, another one who does recording hardware plus guitar pedals. Then we've got Sam, who looks after software. We've got another guy who looks after software instruments and hardware instruments. So we divide it up like that. And then they've all got their sort of pet people that they work with, their pet informers or whatever it is.
Are there more products than ever coming out? Are people inventing more stuff these days?
I don't know about inventing more stuff, but there's more stuff. But a lot of it is stuff that's like other stuff. So we have to be fairly selective in what we pick up. But we have a fairly good news section, so anything that we can't cover, we can give it a fairly deep news article.
Have you ever done a review and regretted it or thought, oh, maybe we missed, maybe it is a good product and we didn't see it? Or
I don't think so, not really. I mean,
There must be a lot of checks and balances doing that. Someone must do the review and you check it out, right? I mean, you have people look at it and kind of...
Well, the section editors do most of the checking. If there's anything that needs to be checked with the manufacturer, myself or Hugh or one of the technical guys will call up and check the technical details. I mean, going right back to the early days, probably something like a Roland TB303, I would have probably written off as a horrible thing because I still hate it.
Which one is that?
That's the one that now changes hands for about $2,000. You know, that's this horrible little square wave bass thing that was part of EDM, part of the revolution, along with the 808, which also sounds like a goat sneezing into baking foil, as far as I'm concerned.
But how do you really feel about it?
Yeah.
That's the secret of my success. God damn it, I'm out of here. Oh my God, that's so good. What about reissue stuff? Like for example, like Paul Wolf has Fix Audio now, and it's based on some like API concepts and stuff like that. Will you do like a Paul Wolf like Fix Audio, Mike Pre, or?
Yeah, we do a lot of that kind of stuff. I mean, personally, I'm not entirely sure what the relevance is, as most of our readers have never heard the original.
Right.
And never had to deal with the original. It's the same as a lot of them get fixated on tape because they never had to put up with the damn stuff and all the side effects.
So the demographic is young?
It varies, really. I mean, I get people who are retired and I get people who are young, but the younger people are the ones who are into the EDM, and they seem to be wanting to buy what their predecessors had, even though they don't know why their predecessors had it. And I think that's kind of why EDM has been stuck in a fairly fixed mould in terms of equipment and sounds for about 30 years. So I don't know of any previous musical trend that's lasted more than about 5.
Right.
Apart from blues, of course, which is proper music.
Yeah. Yes.
My man.
I love it. What do you think about T-Rex?
They're dead, aren't they?
Okay.
Yeah.
Another good answer.
This is
Skirted
fun.
that one.
Yeah, no, I saw T-Rex when they used to be a duo doing all that sort of hippie stuff before they became,
hard rock.
Yeah, because one of them left, and of course the other was Mark Bolan plus Tony Visconti playing bass, and whoever else was around there, and they had that T-Rex thing. But before that, they were Tyrannosaurus Rex, and they just sat there stoned singing about hobbits and stuff.
The funny thing is, Visconti was telling us yesterday that one of the secrets of T-Rex was that they went back past the Beatles, and Bolan stole a lot of blues licks and just made them kind of glammy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which was a kind of not obvious thing back then.
Yeah. He was a better guitarist than a lot of people thought he was, really.
Yeah.
And he always had that kind of groove thing going on, which worked really well.
Right.
Did you grow up in London?
No. I didn't grow up anywhere, actually. No, I was born in Yorkshire, which is the town in England that's, not the town, actually the county. And it's the county that's known for not spending much money, a bit like the Scottish people. They always say that someone from Yorkshire would never spend more than £5 on anything that didn't give several years of reliable service, that kind of thing. Which is why it's great working with Hugh Robjohns, because he comes from the BBC and he likes expensive microphones and does everything properly like the BBC does. And I try to tell people how to get exactly the same results without spending anything. Why bother with acoustic treatment where you can nail all your bedding onto the wall, that kind of stuff. And if you improvise correctly, you can get really good results. So I like showing how to do stuff on the cheap.
Speaking of design, is there a premier English studio designer?
There are a couple. There's Andy Munro and Nick Whitaker, are both two very good designers.
And they've built the bigger studios?
They've worked in some of the biggest studios. I don't know about the very top studios. And they've also done a lot of the radio studios and TV studios. Yeah, we do have some very good guys. And then we have a load of cowboys who just go and nail foam on the wall.
Yeah, well,
egg carton.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the eggs fall out. You stick it on the wall. It's useless.
Exactly. I wouldn't hit that hard because they're known to fall off. We've lost a couple in the last 2 or 3 days.
But we like coming up with cheap fixes. It's like if someone's in rental accommodation and they want to put this foam on the wall, if you put that up with, Auralex spray glue, it's going to bring the plaster down with it. So we develop little techniques like gluing 2 CDs on the back and then you stick 2 map pins in the wall.
So that's a good purpose for a CD.
There you go.
Yeah, and then you hang the hole in the CD over the map pins and it's hanging on the wall. And
That's genius.
And the landlord doesn't kill you.
So was there a template when you started Sound on Sound and any other publication that you went, we can find ourselves in this shelf in the magazine store?
Well, it kind of evolved from what we were doing in home studio recording because we had a sister publication called Electronics and Music Maker. And if you put the two of them together, it was kind of Sound on Sound. So one was all synths and MIDI and the other was all recording. And of course, eventually they converged and you couldn't keep them separate.
Right.
And so it was that. But the guy who started home and studio recording, who was basically a businessman and ad salesman, didn't know anything about recording. But he invented the concept of what he called vertical publications, because before that, they were general music magazines. They covered absolutely everything from teaspoons and drum kits to guitars and violins or whatever. And he said, no, we'll have one for guitars, we'll do one for drummers, we'll have one for recording people, one for keyboard people, even one for organ players. So instead of readers' ads, you had readers' obituaries in that one kind of. and it would have advertising for things like comfortable slippers that you would wear to play the organ pedals. But yeah, he did us a great favour because that whole vertical thing has since permeated all the different magazines now in music. They all tend to be focused. There's one in England called Guitar and Bass, but normally you'd find a bass mag and a guitar mag.
Right.
Yeah, because I don't always want to read about bass guitars.
Ever?
Yeah.
Have you reviewed the H9000 yet?
Not yet.
Ooh,
I've looked at it and lusted.
You wait.
Yeah.
So you have someone already who will be the person.
Yes.
Who specialises?
Well, there are 2 or 3 different people. It might well be Hugh Rob Johns, our technical editor, because he's the guy with the audio precision test set. So as well as saying it sounds nice, he can make sure it measures nicely as well.
Right.
So you have to do both.
Yeah, and that's why he does the expensive preamps.
Right.
If it's a cheap preamp, it just has to sound good and be reliable.
Right.
If it's an expensive one, it has to keep the test equipment happy as well.
What's the
So you put stuff on the bench. He'll put stuff on the bench.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
They're thorough. Do you ever advertise something that's not related?
No, not really.
Right.
It's sometimes things that are at the top end of what we think is our market. Like some of the smaller digital consoles we'll look at and we'll know that only 5% of the readers might be interested in them. But that's kind of like putting a high-end Porsche in a car magazine.
Right.
It's aspirational rather than expecting people to buy it.
So you won't put a pair of slippers on and recommend that not only they're comfortable, but you could play a B3 great with it?
No, but we've done the occasional April Fool's article, where we suggest that the AAS is going to come up with an acoustically consistent sweatshirt that everyone has to wear while mixing because the reflections off it, are a known quantity and part of the... Yeah.
I want one of those.
Yeah, we almost stopped doing April Fools now because the more outlandish ones we did 10 years ago are actually becoming products now.
Yeah, there you go. Careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Mood.
He doesn't know about mood.
You know about mood?
No. Tell us.
Talk about an April Fool's joke.
It's not an April Fool's joke.
No, but it was in the beginning.
Well,
Okay, whatever. We agree to disagree. There's this plugin that Eventide had at one point or has. It's called Mood. And it analyzes your music and tells you if it's angry enough, if it's sad enough, if it's happy enough. And if you think your song is really angry and Mood analyzes it, it might tell you it's not angry enough.
But guess what? So I was talking to your brother, who I brought up Mood. And if you go to Spotify now, which seems to be the way a lot of people are finding music, on the left column, the entire left column is every mood possible. So you click on whatever. What mood are you in right now?
Ambivalent.
I'm sure they have it. Your records will come up. But it actually exists. People are shopping for music based on that.
Yeah, well, it's kind of the opposite of an April Fool we ran ages ago, which had the premise that some scientists had analysed different music to find out what the mood was, and he'd found that there were sort of hidden waveforms in different kinds of music that actually established the mood. So you could take this and you could add it subliminally to your own music and have people sort of weeping over the Tweety Bird song or something because it was so emotional. And
that's insane.
And we did this kind of plug-in for it, which had a kind of joy stroke misery stick because you could just select the mood using that.
You should team up with Tony. They could.
Yeah,
that's my porn name is Joystick Misery.
Yeah. And the other thing, it did virtual surround because you could go to the paranoid sound of it and you'd think it was behind you. Yeah, but sometimes it kind of went wrong because people tried to order the products. We did one which was a soundproof paint, and we came up with a bogus explanation of how it should work. And one of the companies we deal with was foolish enough to let us use their phone number, and they had calls for 10 months of people trying to buy this soundproof paint.
That's really good.
That's a good idea, actually.
You guys should have a whole issue of just that stuff. It would be like the National Lampoon of audio.
Well, leave it to the Brits to have better senses of humor.
Yeah, I know.
than us.
I don't know.
I get it.
Yeah, we do serious stuff too.
No, I know you do. Very well, I might add.
So here's a question for you. When is John going to be on the cover?
Ooh, let me see. That could be a while.
Never. I wouldn't want to cheapen your brand, quite honestly.
If you produce some really famous record, you could get on the cover.
Someday, maybe. I'm working on a thing now where I get paid to not produce famous records. Like I'm getting people to pay me not to work on their records.
That works.
Yeah, I seem pretty good. Doing pretty good with that.
We're indie, stay indie.
Yeah.
You want to keep it indie?
Yeah, it's like my philosophy of playing live. I've suffered for my music now. I make sure everyone else does.
That's right. Wait, is that Neil Innes?
No, it's me.
Okay. All right. I've heard that once, though.
Yeah, maybe. It's been around a while.
So do you enjoy going to work every day the way you...
Yeah, because I work from home, so I just walk down the stairs.
There you
And, yeah, in fact, I could have retired, but I figured, what would I do if I retired?
What would you do?
I'd sit in the studio and I'd play about with expensive toys all day and think, wait a minute, I'm doing that now, and people give me money.
Are there offices at all, or does everybody work from home?
There is an office at the moment, but so many people work from home that there's only really a little bit of admin stuff there. So that's going to be moved to an office next to the owner's house, and everyone else is going to work for home. And if we need a meeting, we'll rent a meeting room because
it seems like the trend, right?
Yeah.
How far in advance does an issue have to start? Like, when do you start getting something for say, that issue?
We can work fairly tightly. I mean, probably only the month before. If it's a really hot product, we can get it into the next issue that's being produced by pushing something else out if we have to. We like to do that.
Right.
But most products take 2 to 3 months to get in there.
But it is kind of a thing where if something's hot,
If it's really hot,
like the 9000, is that like, would you consider that? Let's get that in there.
Yeah, if we got that in there and the review was actually done in time, but that's such a big product, we'd schedule that anyway because it's going to take time to review it properly.
Right.
But, things like when the ADAT came out, which was pretty hot, it was like, that's got to go in the next issue. Right. We got to be the first with it.
Right.
So things get bumped.
So, yeah, things get moved around all the time. And that's why, PR companies come up and say, can we have a features list for the next year? Says, I can't even give you one for the next issue.
Right.
Because you never know.
Oh, so you get hit up by PR companies all the time?
Yeah, we ignore them mostly.
And is it strange for you to be upstairs with all these companies who I know would be honored to be in the magazine? Is it uncomfortable for you?
No, I don't think so, because we managed to cover most of the people who matter in that industry at some time or another.
Right.
I mean, I always feel bad when you've got 3 hot products turn up at once and you haven't got room for them all. That's when I start to feel really bad. It's like, but we've got to put it in. There's no room. It's got to go in. There's no room.
Who's saying there's no room?
He is.
No,
You're saying?
No, the production guys, they've got the pages. The pages are full.
Right.
And then we have to have last-minute meetings about what we might be able to move, but some things you can't move. They usually move my articles, actually.
So you still actively write?
Oh, a lot of the time, yeah. I do reviews and a few features and the Studio SOS thing. And I answer a lot of phone calls and emails from readers, which most magazines won't do, but it gives me a good focus on the areas of ignorance that we can exploit effectively in the magazine.
Yeah.
Because if you look at forums, you think that everyone's far more educated than they actually are.
Yeah, no.
And then you go to the guy at home who's singing into the wrong end of a capacitor microphone, and reality strikes.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. I remember when I bought that EV37 mic, and I had to go online the first 5 times I put it on
figure it
to
out.
make sure I was facing the right way, because it was one of those I'd never seen one before, and it had the round side, but I didn't know if it was front loaded or side loaded.
Right.
So I went on, I Googled it and looked at pictures.
You should have just read sound on sound.
Well, you know.
What is the street price in the United States of an issue?
Oh, I've no idea.
Right.
You have to look on the cover and see.
Take a look.
Yeah, I know what the deal price is for the show.
1985 to 2018. Sorry. It's $9.99.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
I mean, it's still like
It's a week's worth of reading, or it's
Yeah.
more than a week's.
Yeah.
I mean, it hangs in my studio for an edition like that would last a year.
Yeah, they hang around a long time. People put them in the bathroom, and we deliberately print it on glossy paper so they can't use it for the other purpose.
Right.
You know?
Boom.
We've tried.
I love this magazine.
Yeah.
I really do.
But we always do really good show subscription deals, which is about half the price, and you get the electronic edition thrown in as well,
Right.
and the iPad edition, because that's where the world's going. I think we'll see a huge change in magazines once we get some kind of screen technology that's colour that can be read in both bright light and dark. Mm-hmm. And as soon as that happens, all the libraries are going to close and all the books are going to appear on this kind of reader. And if Apple makes something that doesn't break the first time you drop it, that'll be even better.
But that's where you think it's going. Do you think print will last?
It will last for a while, but, you know, I read all my books on a Kindle now because I can take 10 books on holiday and it doesn't get any heavier.
Do you read the news on a Kindle? Or
Occasionally, or on my iPad or
Right.
on the computer if I'm at work.
Right. And what about, I'm sure people have tried to suggest this all the time, offshoot magazines that might be related topic, like for instance, broadcast or...
Yeah, but we're not really big enough to do that. We did at one time try a separate sort of home studio version of Live Sound, which was a gigging musician. And they gave up on that, the owners of the magazine. When it was just starting to take off, they hadn't really given it enough time. And it was during a bad financial time anyway, so it was struggling a bit. So I think that frightened them a little bit.
Right.
So we do the odd insert, which might have a special theme, but we wouldn't go outside our core area of expertise because we wouldn't be experts in it.
Right.
Not that we are anyway, but you know, at least
I
we
think
know
you
about
guys
the
are.
stuff.
I mean, you must know that guys like us really sort of don't have anything else to read but this magazine.
Yeah, I mean, Mixed
the occasional-
Magazine, no offense, I just gave up on that because it was just like a cartoon. To me, it wasn't like a serious magazine. And like I said, I like tape op, but this is more like just, I feel like I'm reading an actual magazine about products, about things that I'm interested in.
Well, it's a little bit more, for me anyway, it's a little bit more, not that I'm scientific by nature, but because I'm not, I do want people who are
Scientific by nature.
by nature to kind of inform me as to what I might be purchasing or using or...
Yeah, well, my aim, I suppose, is to explain the technical detail in language that people can understand. I mean,
I think you do.
I've written
Yeah, you
I've written quite a lot of books separately, which are used by a lot of colleges, and it's just trying to explain things. I mean, I remember when I was studying electronics, one of the tutors, he said, any of you could build a Concorde aircraft if you had the right instructions. And that stayed with me. It's right.
So what kind of books have you written?
The last big one was called The Producer's Manual, which is actually the engineer's manual, but that's what the publisher decided to call it. And it's doing pretty well around the world. And prior to that, I did a whole series of sort of mini books, which are each on individual themes like MIDI and plugins and whatever. And then right back in the early days, I did a series called Creative Recording, and that's back when there really weren't any home recording books. That was back in the 80s. So I think I've got about 20 books out there.
No shit. Wow.
And they make almost no money. It's great.
Well,
But they make it for somebody, but not
the
for me.
producer's manual might be something for us to read
The
at this
Reducer's
point.
Manual. So tell us about but you said it's more like an engineering manual.
Yeah, it's just all the stuff I know, plus a lot of the stuff I've forgotten. So it's probably more than the stuff I know now about how to get decent results, home studio recording style, explaining all the different processes, how you might use them, how you might mix something, but without getting too geeky.
Do you get into the psychological?
A little bit, things about keeping vocalists happy and never tell them that the take was rubbish, that kind of thing.
Right.
You could do a better one, I think, but that was okay. You could do it better when what you really mean is he can't sing.
Yeah, exactly. We had another great Visconti moment yesterday where someone asked him if he ever wanted to take the instrument out of the musician's hand. And he says if he ever has to do that, he does it in a sense where he says, oh, let me just show you maybe try this. And he'll play it, the idea, but poorly, and then give him back the instrument or give her back the instrument or whatever. And then they don't feel like he's kind of upstaging.
Yeah, I certainly cover a lot of that because musicians do have fragile egos. It's easy to make someone lose their confidence. So you have to kind of inspire them to do something.
And with technology these days changing so fast, I mean, you just mentioned MIDI and, ADATs and that's like over the last 25 years or so. Things are moving fast now. They seem to me, I don't know if they're progressing in a more musical way or not, but it seems like you probably could write a book every couple of years that would be based on new information.
Yeah, that's why I don't, because the books don't have a long enough shelf life. I mean, at one time someone said, could you write a book about using Logic? I said, by the time I've written it, there'll be a new version out, it'll be out of date. So...
Are you ever asked by manufacturers, inventors, for your input on stuff before they're even making it?
Quite often, if it's a small company, yes. And we've had things in for review occasionally. They've sent us a prototype and we've looked at it and said, yeah, but you've missed out this. And Rob Johns has tried a few things and done his measurements on them and go, yeah, but your left channel's out of phase or whatever.
Really?
Send it back and they'll sort it out.
Oh, that's great.
The problem are the big manufacturers, especially the ones from, the Far East and Japan, because there'll be a container with 1,000 units on its way over by the time we're writing the review. And if we find something that warrants the word tragically, as we did that one time, it was too late to do anything about it.
Wow.
And I remember the guys from this particular company, they got us all in a meeting at NAMM and said, you've ruined this product, you've killed this product. I said, how? And they said, that's because people take notice of what you say in your magazine. Why did they take notice? Well, you're always so accurate and honest about things. I said, yes. And we left it there, really.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
What do you have? You want to just carry on, or do you hope that something different happens with the magazine? Like, have you found that niche and now you just want to maintain, or do you have any desires, dreams, or?
Well, my dream, I do my own music. That's my dreams. It just about makes enough money to keep itself online. And that's about it. I was hoping to save up to buy an island, but so far I can't afford the bag of gravel for the first, dropping it in the water. But magazine-wise, it's just to keep up with things and to educate people, really. Right. I just really love talking to people, which is why Hugh and I go to colleges quite often and talk to students. And no matter how high the caliber of the class, they'll always ask questions that need answers.
Right.
I mean, what seems more tragic is the way that education's been turned into a business rather than a vocation. Because we'll go to these colleges who've sold this idea of a recording course to people. And out of the 40 people in the class, there are probably 2 that should be there. And you can tell the rest are playing with their phones or messing about. And there are 2 guys asking all the right questions. You go, those are the ones that are going to make it. And you can tell straight away the others shouldn't be there. They should be learning to say, do you want fries with this?
Right.
That's kind of what they should.
Now, why are they there, though, if they really aren't that interested?
They think music's, kind of groovy and hip and glamorous and easy to do. And, I just want to make beats, man,
Right.
So go and make beats, but you won't make any money from it unless you're particularly good at making beats.
Right.
And only a limited number of people are.
Right.
It's like everybody wants to be a YouTube celebrity and they've got nothing to be a celebrity for or about. Yeah, but then that starts to be a comment on society at large, and we could go on for hours.
Yeah, tell me about it.
But I'm really enjoying making music again. So when I'm going out gigging, I play covers with a little trio, which is fun. But when I'm writing music, it's far more adventurous, stuff that you can never play live. And it's just me and another guy, and we meet up once a week and, spend a few hours together and then ship the material back and forth. And I'm finding it's really a lot of fun.
So is it electronic music or is it?
It's hard to say. I mean, it's electronic with guitar. It's cinematic. It's ambient.
You said it's hard to play. You said hard to play live.
It's hard to play live because it got so many parts, and there's a lot of processing done in it by abusing plugins.
Right.
I love abusing plugins to do things that they were never supposed to do.
Right. What's your favorite, like, so when you, give us one example of, like, smacking around a plugin? Like, what? Like,
okay, one of my favorite tricks, and we've written an article on this, which we'll get in when Matt stops bumping it over in his section to make room for something hot. So this is, you just get someone to speak. Ladies' voices work very nicely. And if someone's got a lot of modulation in their voice, in fact, I did it with Mr. Trump once, but they wouldn't let me use it for the AES demo last year.
Too bad.
So you just take a bit of voice, you use whatever pitch and time software you've got to stretch it to about 4 times its length. Then you take out all the gravelly bits that are caused by fricatives, as it were, and join it back together. It doesn't matter what it says, really. And then you stick it through a pitch corrector set to a really hard scale so that it's yodeling away between pitches. Then you go and put it through adaptive verb, which is that resynthesis reverb that Zynaptic do. And the whole thing suddenly turns into this ethereal choir and not Mr. T at all.
Let me be very important.
wow.
And I quite often use that. And then you can find the good bits that work and you can cut them up and make them work in time with things. But I've done quite a lot just with casually recorded speech. You can turn it into a great background part. And then there's processed guitar and the usual synths as well. I like the Alchemy synth that comes with Logic. I mean, since they bought Camel Audio and put that synth in there, it's very powerful. And Omnisphere, of course.
How come you started on Logic first?
I started on Logic first because back in the Atari days, there was Steinberg and there was C-Lab Creator.
Wow.
So there was the forerunner to Cubase, which I think was Pro 24 or something. And I was friends with the distributors who did C-Lab software, and they said, you've got to try this software. We'll get you a copy of that, and you can put it on the Atari and try that out. And I got used to that, and when that evolved into Logic, I just followed it. But I'm glad I did, because it's a really good all-round piece of software. It might not do audio editing quite as fancy as Pro Tools, but the MIDI side is better, and the bundled software, instruments and plugins are just so good for the money. I mean, the thing is almost a lost leader for Apple, isn't it? I mean, they sell it for under $200.
Right.
And before Apple had it cost about $4,000 if you bought all the modules to make the same thing. So it's definitely a lost leader to make you buy an overpriced computer. But
So
it
did
works.
Apple buy it?
Yeah.
Apple, they bought it.
They bought it. It was a German company, and they bought the company, and they took the chief engineers with them and gave them positions within Apple. And that's where GarageBand came from as well, which is Logic Lite, really.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you guys go to Japan and look at studios, or go to Thailand, or go to Africa? Do you go that far reaching?
Not very often.
Right.
I mean, it has happened occasionally, but usually when someone else is paying the bill.
Right. But you might hear something, hey, we heard that there's something going on somewhere.
Yes, or if something coincides with the trade show, or in Hugh's case, he still does a bit of freelance training of broadcast people because of his BBC background. So he did something in South Africa when he was down there, teaching people surround sound for television or whatever it is that he does down there.
But other than a place maybe like Japan, are products mostly coming out of the Western world?
Yeah.
Do you find new stuff coming from
Well,
remote
it
places?
kind of comes from pretty much all over, doesn't it? I mean, we've got Rode microphones plus some other microphones coming from Australia. You've got endless Chinese microphones, and even stuff that's not Chinese tends to be built in China unless it's really expensive.
Right.
Europe's a pretty good ground, especially software. I don't know, it's something about those long winter nights that makes for good software writers, I think. And especially as you go further north up into Scandinavia, where the darkness lasts for 6 months or something, they're really good with their software.
Yeah, 9 months later, you have a little baby plug-in.
Yeah, you get no software writers in the Bahamas, do you? I mean, you just don't hear of them.
Good point.
Yeah. But stuff does come from everywhere.
It does.
Yeah.
I know Electro-Harmonics has all those like Mel 9 and the Synth 9 now and the sitar pedal. And
Yeah.
The
like
B3
yeah,
one.
they have like a whole line of pedals that all are kind of sound modeling now.
There's an interesting story with that, because in this little trio I play with, I actually use a B9 to do the organ sounds. And I thought, I'll just stick that on the pedal board, it'll be great. But no, you've got to compress the input, because organs don't have a lot of dynamics. And if you want it to be even, you've got to compress the input. And now I need an Ernie Ball volume pedal to bring it in and out.
You must be schlepping a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, now I've got to have a Leslie, because the built-in thing doesn't have speed change.
Right.
So then I bought a Neo Leslie pedal, which is wonderful, actually. So now the bottom row of my pedal is entirely stuffed with stuff that works with the B9, and the top row is just a few pedals for the guitar. And I can't get any more in because I can't buy a bigger bag.
Right.
So it's all that will fit in the bag.
Well, I noticed you keep saying buying.
Buying.
Why don't they give them to you?
People don't often give me stuff. I bought the first B9 because I was so excited to buy it.
right.
I didn't even try to blag one. I just
actually
ordered it
bought
from the
one too.
cheapest retailer and reviewed the one I bought. People don't often give us stuff these days, apart from software. Some people will.
Right.
Others will give you a 6-month license, and then when you get used to it, it evaporates, which is very frustrating.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, that's what people say. Do the people give you gear in exchange for a good review? You say, well, if it's not a good piece of gear, I wouldn't want it.
Yeah, there you go.
And no, we wouldn't do it. I mean, you make that joke, our integrity is the best that money can buy. But no, we don't play that way.
Yeah.
No, and that's obvious, and that's kind of, I think, why
Yeah.
this
and
magazine.
if we have to buy stuff, we buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite lucky with Logic. If you attend their press briefings, then they'll let you have the copy of Logic or the update or whatever it is that goes with it. But I still have to buy the Mac that runs it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Was there anything else?
Anything we
Can we
miss
help promote
at all?
it any better?
You can promote my online music if you want.
Let's do that.
Yeah,
Where can we find it?
You can find it on Spotify. I mean, we went through
Under
loads.
what mood?
Under what? I mean, it's probably ambient. But the interesting thing is the artist name, which is the Cydonia Collective.
Cydonia.
Cydonia, which is a place on Mars. It's not the first name that we wanted, but every name that we thought up that seemed appropriate, somebody had got it. It didn't matter how outlandish it was.
No
You
shit.
do an internet search and somebody's already got
everything.
it. And there's even a band called the Knights of Cydonia who are out there, but there's no Cydonia Collective. So Mark and myself, we put this music together there. We got 4 albums up. We're quite prolific.
Fabulous.
We got 4 albums up in 18 months, and we've got nearly enough material finished for the next 2 albums.
And,
Wow.
And both you guys write?
Yeah.
Right.
You
Yeah.
both mix it together, or one of you guys do you hand it off and mix each a little bit?
No, the way we work is I usually get the original idea of the thing and the structure, and then I send it over to Mark, and it comes back with lots of red bits on it where he's added piano and taken bits and copied them, and he goes, that bit's really cool, we should repeat that bit. So he's more of an arranger, but he'll add a few parts, and then it'll come back, and I'll go, well, I like what you've done, and then we sit together and fine-tune it, and then we do the mix together.
Is it all instrumental?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there are vocal sounds in it, but
Right.
there are no
But no lyric.
lyrics as
Right.
such. I mean, one of the tracks on the latest album, I mean, it was inspired by the fact I go on holiday to Turkey, and the lady who runs the hotel is British, but she goes to Thailand for her holidays, and she was explaining how the waitress in the Thai hotel couldn't pronounce muesli and yogurt for breakfast. She comes around every day and says, "You want muesli and yo?" So I recorded her saying this, and we got a track on that album called Muesli and Yo, and it just sounds wonderful. It's been through that treatment that I described,
Yes.
and it comes out as this a really evocative choral kind of wash. It's not kind of gnarly and granular. It's very smooth. So things just happen. I like things that just happen.
Cydonia Collective,
Yeah.
4 albums,
Four albums, 2 more in the pipeline.
2 more in the pipeline. And what about the books? Can we talk the names of the books?
Well, the most relevant one, I suppose, at the moment is the producer's manual, but there's also a Studio SOS book, which I think Focal Press are dealing with at the moment, which we wrote in-house at Sound on Sound. It was mostly me, but a bit of Hugh and a bit of Dave Lockwood. And I also did a basic live sound book under the Sound on Sound logo, and that's out there now, so they're current. All the other ones are a bit long in the tooth now, I think.
Great.
But yeah, it's lovely if you can promote those.
Well,
I want to check out the producer's workbook.
yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I actually do.
They did a lovely job on it graphically. I mean, it's really quite a useful book, and the students find it approachable.
How long did it take you to write?
About 3 months, I think. But I broke the back of it on holiday. I did a 3 or 4 week holiday at this place in Turkey that I like going to, and I just sat in the bar and wrote the book.
Wow. So it was
great
really,
to have you.
Really awesome.
No, it's a pleasure to be here. I mean, there's nothing more fun than geeking out with fellow geeks.
Yes, exactly.
Well,
We try.
John and I have been, just so you know,
Yeah, we've been
we're
reading
in
it.
your brain.
Yeah.
We're reading this stuff all the time.
In fact, I know I have a box of magazines that I took out of storage when I was moving, and I have a couple of DBs. I have the DB with the old record plant truck in it, and I have a stack of Sound on Sounds because I would save them. Like other ones, I would just be...
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now you
Sound
can
on Sound.
now you can go back and revisit them online. You don't have to feel too bad about getting rid of the old ones.
That's why I asked you about how you read.
Yeah, me too.
I way prefer this.
And also, I know you talked about your Kindle, but I'm a 2-book vacation guy.
Yeah, well,
And I love carrying the books.
the thing is, if you fall asleep reading the book, it closes and you forget where the
forget
page
where it
was.
is.
The Kindle always sorts that out for you. And if you forget your reading glasses, you can make the text bigger. You know, it's
I haven't had that problem yet.
yeah. In fact, as the demographic gets older, I think some of the plug-in manufacturers should take notice because things like Native Instruments Contact, which is a really, really good sample player and instrument, you can't rescale it. So without the reading glasses, I can't see a damn thing.
There you go.
Yeah, that's no good.
It should be, when they sell the product, they should have
What age you're
2.1
in.
distance.
Yes, suitable for ages 16 to 30, that kind of thing. Above that, glasses may be needed.
Don't try this without reading glasses.
Oh, my God.
Well, Paul,
that's so
really
good.
great.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Paul.
It's great talking to you.
What a charm.
Excellent. Me and Stewie want to thank all you Gear Clubbers for listening to this crazy podcast we do. If you can, leave a review on iTunes. It really makes a difference. And don't be shy. We love hearing from you guys on the social media at Gear Club Podcast. Don't forget to go to gearclubpodcast.com for Spotify playlists, links and photos for the episodes, and my favorite hot sauce of the month.